Hey, welcome back to the channel. Something strange just happened in Washington, and it's the kind of story most people won't believe until they see the consequences. On October 23rd, Donald Trump went on Truth Social and typed a single sentence. All trade negotiations with Canada are terminated. No press conference, no warning, just one post. But that single message sent shockwaves through the entire North American economy. It started with a political ad in Canada, one that used Ronald Reagan's voice criticizing tariffs.
Adrian, Donald Trump declaring on social media that he's officially called off trade talks with Canada. It's over an advertisement from Ontario's government that's been playing on American networks. Ontario's premier recently launched the $75 million anti-tariff campaign using a video with the voice of former President Ronald Reagan. It's from his famous address in 1987.
Trump called it fake, accused Ottawa of crossing the line, and within minutes, turned a PR dispute into a geopolitical crisis. Within 24 hours, the U.S. markets reacted. EV and clean energy stocks fell more than 4%, investors scrambled, and supply chain executives warned of immediate uncertainty across industries that rely on Canadian minerals and metals. For years, those materials have been the backbone of America's auto, defense, and tech production. And now, overnight, that flow was in question.
Canada is home to some of the largest reserves of critical minerals in the world. We have lithium, nickel, cobalt, copper, and rare earth elements. They're all widely available here. The value of our mineral production topped $70 billion in 2023.
Because President Trump has talked about, I want automakers in the U.S., I want things made in the U.S. so that we're not importing from places like Canada, but can they?
The real shock isn't that Trump made the announcement. It's what that announcement might reveal. A turning point where America's biggest trading partner and its most stable supplier suddenly becomes the one holding the leverage. So here's the question. Did Washington just protect its economy, or did it hand over the keys to Canada? Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button. A simple like helps push this video to more people who need to see it. And that's where the story takes an unexpected turn, because this time, the fallout isn't coming from China or Russia. It's coming from America's closest friend. By cutting off talks with Ottawa, Washington has effectively locked itself out of its own industrial lifeline. Canada isn't just another trading partner, it's the backbone of the U.S. supply chain. In 2023 alone, Canada exported nearly $29.8 billion worth of critical minerals to the United States. The metals that make electric vehicles move, batteries store power, and defense systems function. Between 2018 and 2021, Canada supplied 45% of America's nickel, 66% of its zinc, 31% of its vanadium, and 16% of its cobalt, all materials the Pentagon classifies as essential for national security. They're the hidden ingredients behind everything from EV batteries to fighter jet radar systems. So when Trump hit terminate, he didn't just end negotiations. He disrupted the only stable, politically secure supply chain the U.S. still had in the Western world. As one analyst put it, without Canada, America is like a factory running out of raw materials in the middle of peak season. Still with us? Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's next. And the impact didn't stop at the negotiating table. It spread fast from government offices to factory floors. Within days, the effect rippled through American manufacturing. Industries built on critical minerals, solar energy, batteries, and advanced electronics began to feel the strain. For years, those sectors have relied heavily on imports from Canada and Mexico, two neighbors that kept the supply chain flowing even during global disruptions. But now, with Washington picking trade fights on three fronts, Canada, China, and Mexico, the entire North American production network is seizing up. Prices for lithium and cobalt jumped between 12% and 18% in just 2 weeks, pushing the cost of every EV battery higher by roughly $200 to $150 per car. Factories in Michigan and Texas have already reported production cuts of up to 20%, simply because materials aren't arriving on time. What was meant to be a strategy for economic protection has turned into a slow suffocation of U.S. industry. And it doesn't end there. Economists warn that even a 10% surge in copper prices could add another 0.2% to annual inflation, putting the Federal Reserve in an impossible position right in the middle of an election year. While Washington pulled back, Ottawa moved quickly and quietly. Prime Minister Mark Carney didn't respond with rhetoric. He responded with strategy. Instead of escalating the dispute, Canada began redrawing its own trade map, one alliance at a time. On October 13, 2025, Canada signed a new partnership with India, focusing on critical minerals and agricultural exports, a deal that opened the door to one of the fastest-growing markets in South Asia. Just weeks earlier, on August 26th, Ottawa and Germany released a joint declaration on mineral processing, refining, and recycling, setting up shared infrastructure that could bypass U.S. bottlenecks entirely. Japan and the European Union soon followed, entering bilateral agreements to coordinate data and standards on critical mineral production. Behind the scenes, major European corporations, BASF, Umicore, and Rio Tinto, expanded their operations in Ontario and Quebec, forming what investors now call the Clean Mineral Belt. Through these moves, Canada positioned itself as a de-risked supplier for the West, a stable, transparent, and politically neutral source of materials in a world increasingly defined by trade wars. What began as a defensive maneuver has quietly turned into an offensive one. While the U.S. isolates itself, Canada is building the very alliances that could redefine Western industrial security. As Washington closed its doors, Ottawa began to redraw the map. What started as damage control has evolved into strategy. Canada is no longer the quiet neighbor in the supply chain. It's becoming the new gatekeeper of the West's industrial future. Under Mark Carney's leadership, Canada has been recast as the architect of the Western Mineral Network, connecting resource-rich territories with the world's most advanced economies. More than 31 critical minerals from Canada are now officially listed in the G7 Strategic Resource Framework, granting Ottawa top-tier priority for international investment and security partnerships. In early 2025, the Canadian government launched a $12.5 billion Clean Minerals Transition Fund designed to expand domestic mining, refining, and recycling capacity. This isn't just about digging more. It's about controlling every step of the value chain, from raw ore to finished battery component. With stable infrastructure, transparent regulation, and predictable policy, long-term supply contracts with the EU and Japan are quietly replacing U.S. deals. And as those networks deepen, Canada now oversees access to nearly 40% of the G7's total supply of critical minerals, an unprecedented position for a country once seen as a junior partner. In the span of months, the tables have turned. The West's industrial lifeline no longer runs through Washington, it runs through Ottawa. But every action has a cost, and this one came home fast. By cutting off Canada, Washington didn't just lose a trade partner, it exposed a deeper truth. America First is slowly becoming America alone. U.S. manufacturers, especially in the electric vehicle and clean tech sectors, are now facing input costs nearly twice as high as their counterparts in Europe and Canada. Companies like Tesla, Ford, and Rivian have been forced to source critical minerals from third markets such as Indonesia and the Democratic Republic of Congo, regions where prices are volatile, logistics are unpredictable, and political risk runs high. The results are showing up on balance sheets. By the fourth quarter of 2025, profits across America's high-tech manufacturing sector had dropped 6.8%, marking the second consecutive quarterly decline. The supply squeeze is now rippling through everything from battery factories to semiconductor plants. Meanwhile, north of the border, Canada, the EU, and Japan have launched a trilateral investment framework worth more than $40 billion, aimed at securing critical minerals and clean energy production. As those partnerships tighten, the U.S. finds itself increasingly on the outside of the system it once led, a self-imposed isolation that's turning the world's safe industrial hub into a risk zone of its own making. From a single impulsive decision, the trade order of North America is being quietly rewritten. Canada now holds the keys while the United States is left outside the gate, and the rest of the world is adjusting accordingly. Mid-sized economies like Australia, Norway, and Chile are studying the Canada model, exploring how to rebuild national resource strategies that balance economic security with global leverage. In the meantime, Washington is being forced to negotiate indirectly, often through European intermediaries, a move that nearly doubles both the cost and time needed for essential imports. What began as a show of strength has become a case study in strategic overreach. The irony is hard to miss. Canada's rise isn't happening because the U.S. failed. It's happening because the U.S. weakened itself. And now, The world is watching to see what comes next. Will Washington rebuild the bridges it burned, or will this be remembered as the moment when North America split its own foundation? Thanks for sticking around. If you found this valuable, like and subscribe to support more content like this.